Okay. So again, I think we started with chapter 2 sometime back. The acronym for this chapter was Gita. The G in Gita, so Gita, the stood for Guru. So, as you may recollect from the first chapter, Arjuna was lamenting about him being in a situation where he had to fight with his friends, his relatives, his grandfather, his teachers, and his cousins. So he was perplexed and he was looking for some kind of an advice. So, in this chapter, in the first few verses, Arjuna actually continued his lamentation, and then he approached to Krishna, who was at that time his charioteer, his also friend, and his cousin, actually, I should say. So he had a lot of relationship with Krishna before this chapter began, but I don't think I haven't heard or read anywhere to say that he treated Krishna as his guru. So in the first few verses, after his lamentations were done, Krishna became Arjuna's guru when Arjuna surrendered to him and asked for advice. Even before we begin Krishna as Guru, we have to remember Krishna is actually Bhagwan. So wherever we see Bhagwan, we have to know the qualities of Bhagwan. Who is the Bhagwan, right? What qualifies anybody to be called Bhagwan? So it has to have six that the definition of Bhagwan, it's basically has to have six qualities. So it has to have all the strength, all the wealth, all the fame, all the knowledge, all the beauty, and all renunciation. So anybody who has those qualities, only that person is entitled to be Bhagwan. So we have today a lot of people who have a lot of money, but they don't have other, uh, like all the strength, all the fame, and so on. So people have some or the other qualities, not in its entirety, but a lot of it, but they don't qualify themselves. We can't qualify them to be Bhagwan. So so the I in Gita stood for identity, and it was from verses 11 through 30. And basically, identity portion of this chapter, we are going to learn more and more about the soul, the Atma, um, that we all have. And we read through a lot of different qualities of Atma. And we are going to continue to have more of such qualities. So, just to recap, soul is covered by subtle. So, soul's qualities are eternal, it is full of knowledge, and it is full of bliss. So, soul is an infinitesimal part of the overall super soul, which is within our heart, and it is covered with subtle body, which is the mind, intelligence, and false ego. And all this subtle body is covered with the gross body, which is made up of five elements: the water, the earth, the air, the fire, the ether. So all of this entity, all of these three coverings, if you may call it as, becomes the physical body. But there is an entity which is soul, and we talked about a lot of different characters of soul. We talked about soul being unborn. We talked about soul being eternal. And now in this next few verses, we are going to talk about soul that cannot be killed, or when the body is killed. So there are a few other ones as well, the qualities that soul cannot be cut by weapons or burned by fire. I think we learned it around the last time. Nor can it be moistened by water, withered by the wind, unbreakable, insoluble, and so on. So we are continuing to go through these characteristics of soul, what the soul is, how. I think we already learned about how big the soul is. And the soul is like 1/10,000 part of the tip of the hair. So it's very, 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 very small. So that's why it is said that it cannot be seen, even by the super sensitive microscopes that we have. So, Yashashwini Mataji, I think we need to start with verse 25. If you want to chant those verses, we'll follow you. Avyaktoyam achintyoyam avikaryoyam uchyate
tasmadevam viditvainam
nanushojitum arhasi. Synonyms. Avyaktaha, invisible, I am this soul. Achintyaya, inconceivable, I am this soul. Avikarayah, unchangeable, I am this soul. Uchyate is said. Tasmat, therefore, evam, like this. Viditva, knowing it well. Enam, this soul. Na, do not. Anushochitam, to lament. Arhasi, you deserve. Translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada. Translation. It is said that the soul is invisible, inconceivable, and immutable. Knowing this, you should not grieve for the body. So, Pavitra Mataji, you want to say the purport?
Purport by Srila Prabhupada. As described previously, the magnitude of the soul is so small for our material calculation that he cannot be seen even by the most powerful microscope. Therefore, he is invisible. As far as the soul's existence is concerned, no one can establish his existence experimentally beyond the proof of Shruti or Vedic wisdom. We have to accept this truth because there is no other source of understanding the existence of the soul, although it is a fact by perception. There are many things we have to accept solely on grounds of superior authority. No one can deny the existence of his father based upon the authority of his mother. There is no source of understanding the identity of the father except by the authority of the mother. Similarly, there is no source of understanding the soul except by studying the Vedas. In other words, the soul is inconceivable by human experimental knowledge. The soul is consciousness and conscious. That also is the statement of the Vedas, and we have to accept that. Unlike the bodily changes, there is no change in the soul. As eternally unchangeable, the soul remains atomic in comparison to the infinite supreme soul. The supreme soul is infinite and the atomic soul is infinitesimal. Therefore, the infinitesimal soul, being unchangeable, can never become equal to the infinite soul or the supreme personality of Godhead. This concept is repeated in the Vedas in different ways just to confirm the stability of the conception of the soul. Repetition of something is necessary in order that we understand the matter thoroughly without error.
All right. Thank you. So, again, I think in not so many words, actually, is just kind of explaining what the characteristics of soul is: invisible, inconceivable, and it cannot be changed. So these are important points to know that soul is different from the body, and that whenever we see anybody pass away, disappear, we need to remember that it's the body. The soul has already left, and what you're seeing is the body. And as in previous verses, Prabhupada and Krishna has already mentioned, like soul will continue to keep changing its body just like we change our clothes. So if there are no questions, we'll move on to the next verse. Vishwashwini Mataji, you want to say the 26th verse?
Atha chainam nityajatam
Atha chainam nityajatam
nityam va manyase mritam
nityam va manyase mritam
abitvam mahabaho
tathapi tvam mahabaho
nam shochitumarhasi.
nainam shochitum arhasi. Synonyms: atha, if, however; cha, also; enam, this soul; nityam, nityajatam, always born; nityam, forever; va, either; manyase, you so think; mritam, dead; tatha, tatha api, still; tvam, you; mahabaho, O mighty armed one; no, never; enam, about the soul; sochitum, to lament; arhasi, deserve. I kyo papa, and do you want to read the, so I'll read the translation, if you can read the purport. So translation: if, however, you think that the soul or the symptoms of life will always be born or and die forever, you still have no reason to lament, O mighty armed one. So in this particular verse, Krishna is actually alluding to other people who had different conceptions of body and soul. So he talks about a couple of, I think there were, in Buddhism, they say that the soul doesn't have any existence besides the body. So it's talking to those types of philosophers, those types of people who have that conception in mind about the soul. Huh. Ai kya papa? आई तुला पर्पट म्हणायचंय की वाचून पर्पट वाचायचं? ओ ओके, ठीक आहे, चालेल. मग यशस्विनी माताजी, you want to say the purport?
There is a class of philosophers almost akin to Buddhists who do not believe the separate existence of the soul beyond the body. When Lord Krishna spoke the Bhagavad Gita, it appears that such philosophers existed and they were known as Lokayatikas and Vibhashikas. Such philosophers maintain the life symptoms and take place at a certain mature condition of material combination. The modern material scientists and materialist philosophers also think similarly. According to them, the body is a combination of physical elements, and at a certain age, the life symptoms develop by interaction of the physical and chemical elements. The science of anthropology is based on this philosophy. Currently, many pseudo religions now becoming fashionable in America are also adhering to this philosophy, as are nihilistic, non-devotional Buddhist sects. Even if Arjuna did not believe in the existence of the soul as in the Vaishabhashika philosophy. There would still have been no cause for lamentation. No one laments on the cause of a certain bulk of chemicals and stops discharging his prescribed duty. On the other hand, in modern science and scientific warfare, so many tons of chemicals are wasted on for victory over the enemy. According to the Vaibhashika philosophy, the so-called soul or Atma vanishes along with the deterioration of the body. So in case whether Arjuna accepted the Vedic conclusion that there is no atomic soul or he did not believe the existence of the soul, he had no reason to lament. According to this theory, there are so many living entities generating out of matter every moment, so many of them are being vanquished every moment, so there is no need to grieve for such incidents. If there were no rebirth of the soul, Arjuna had no reason to be afraid of being affected by the sinful reactions due to killing his grandfather and teacher. But at the same time, Krishna sarcastically addressed Arjuna as Mahabahu, mighty arm, because he at least did not accept the theory of the Vaibhashika, which which leaves aside the Vedic wisdom. As a Kshatriya, Arjuna belonged to the Vedic culture, and it behooved him to continue and follow its principles.
Thank you. So again, I think it's this. So I was looking through what those two philosophies are. I mean, they are akin to atheism. So atheism at that time was also looks like very prevalent, and there the concept is more to do with having body and soul together. So Krishna is just basically trying to say, if you are why are you lamenting on something that you know has a definite beginning and a definite end? So in that philosophy, there is a beginning and there is an end to any living existence. And the fact that somebody was born, that process began, and somebody is going to die no matter what, then he should not be lamenting. Mataji, you have anything else on this point? Yashashwini Mataji, do you have your mom there with you as well?
My mom is doing yoga.
Oh, okay. All right. So we'll move on to the next one.
Okay. Jatasya hi dhruvo mrityuhu.
Jatasya hi dhruvo mrityu.
Mamritasya cha.
Dhruvam janma mrityasya cha.
Tasmada pariharyerthe.
Tasmada pariharyete.
Natvam shochitum
Natvam shochitum arhasi. Jatasya, one of the one who has taken his birth, he certainly, dhurvaha, a fact, mrityuhu, death, dhruvam is also a fact, janma, birth, mritasya, of the dead, cha, also tasmat, therefore, apariharye, of that which is unavoidable, arthe, in the matter, na, do not, tvam, you, sochitum, to lament, arhasi, deserve. Translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada. Translation: one who has taken his birth is sure to die, and after death, one is sure to take birth again. Therefore, in an unavoidable discharge of your duty, you should not lament. Again, I think this is one of the concluding verses um, of the qualities of the soul, where Arjuna is being told by Krishna that he has anybody who has taken the birth is sure to die. So, in since is born as Kshatriya, he is supposed to fight for the religion and for the protecting the other three varnashrams. He should not lament. And one of the things that he needed to also think about was the fact that he has to fight for his rights, and the fact that Duryodhan had taken away his rights and his ability to rule, that made it even more important for him to fight for his rights. So I'll say the purport on this. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. One has to take birth according to one's activities. And after finishing one term of activities, one has to die to take birth for the next. In this way, one is going through one cycle of birth and death, and after another without liberation. This cycle of birth and death does not, however, support unnecessary murder, slaughter, and war. But at the same time, violence and war are inevitable factors in human society for keeping law and order. The battle of Kurukshetra, being the will of the Supreme, was an inevitable fight, and to fight for the right cause is the duty of Kshatriya. Why should he be afraid or aggravated at the death of his relatives, since he was discharging his proper duty? He did not deserve to break the law, thereby becoming subjected to the reactions of sinful acts, of which he was afraid. By avoiding discharging of his proper duty, he would not be able to stop the death of his relatives, and he would be degraded due to his selection of the wrong path of action. So here again, I think Krishna is actually emphasizing the point that Arjuna in this in this in his pastime that he forgot about it was his discharging of his duties. Him being born as Kshatriya, he had certain duties. Everybody who is born based on their karma, they have their own duties. Brahmana has to teach the science of self-realization to others. Kshatriya has to protect the other three varnashram systems and so on. So everybody has their own role to play in this society. So with this verse, I remember one of the stories that used to be that I think Prabhupada has told in his lectures, where there was a man who was very rich, and he had a lot of money. He built a lot of palaces, a lot of nice places, and then he passed away. So he was so attached to those palaces, those things, those buildings, but he did not realize that he was not going to carry those things along with him in his next life. So based on his karma, he actually was born as a cobbler. And long behold, he actually remembered what he used to do in his previous birth. So he was so attached in this to his palaces, his places, that he actually remembered in his next life that even though he was born as a cobbler, and he happened to be his shop happened to be in front of the building that he used to own, he could not. I mean, cobbler doesn't have a whole lot of money. That's why he's just kind of repairing people's shoes and so on. But when he saw this house that he remembered from his previous lifetime, he started going into that house, and his sons from his previous lifetime were still living in that place. And when he went into that house, they kicked him out because that was not the cobbler was not the resident of that house. So that kind of teaches one to know the fact of life is that we take birth and then we pass away. Whatever we have to do in this life only stays with us. Our karmas on this life will give us the rise to the next life. So it doesn't matter if you are rich or poor in this life, whatever your karma is in this life, they will go over to the next life, give you the quality of life for the next cycle. But the whole point is to come out of this cycle of birth and death, and that's what Krishna is trying to teach in Bhagavad Gita. So, Madhuji, you have anything else? Okay, so this is verse 27. If anybody has any questions, else we will move on to the verse 28. You want to say any the verse 28? Yashish?
Avyaktadini bhutani
Avyaktadini
vyaktamadhyani bharata
Vyaktamadhyani
Bharata
avyaktanidhananyeva
Avyaktanidhananyeva
tatra ka paridevana.
Tatra
Tatra
ka
ka
paridevana.
paridevana.
Synonyms: Avyaktadini. In the beginning, unmanifested, bhutani, all that are created, vyakta, manifested, madhyani, in the middle, bharata, O descendant of Bharata, avyakta, non-manifested, nidhanani, when vanquished, eva, it is all like that, tatra, therefore, ka, what, paridevana, lamentation. Translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada. All created beings are unmanifest in the beginning, manifest in the interim state, and unmanifested again when annihilated. So, what is there for lamentation? So, here one concept that Krishna is bringing up is the cycle of the yuga cycle. So as we know, every day of Brahma, we have 1,000 Mahayugas. And in those Mahayugas, 1,000 Mahayugas is formed by, each Mahayuga is formed by Satya Yuga, Treta Yuga, Dwapar Yuga, and Kali Yuga. So we are in the Kali Yuga phase. So every time the Yuga cycle changes, there is annihilation. There is a temporary annihilation, and then after the death of Brahma, before the new Brahma is formed, there is another complete annihilation. So there is this concept of cycle of annihilation and manifestation, and then where people start to live, and we go through these cycles all the time. So in this particular verse, basically, Krishna is just simply talking about that state where things are going to disappear, things are going to appear. So why is there need for lamentation? Pavitra, you want to say the purport?
28, no?
28.
Accepting that there are two classes of philosophers, one believing in the existence of the soul and the other not believing in the existence of the soul, there is no cause for lamentation in either case. Non believers in the existence of the soul are called atheists by followers of Vedic wisdom. Yet, even if, for argument's sake, we accept this atheistic theory, there is still no cause for lamentation. Apart from the separate existence of the soul, the material elements remain unmanifested before creation. From this subtle state of non manifestation comes manifestation, just as from ether, air is generated, from air, fire is generated, from fire, water is generated, and from water, earth becomes manifested. From the earth, many varieties of manifestations take place. Take, for example, a big skyscraper manifested from the earth. When this is dismantled, the manifestation becomes again unmanifested and remains as atoms in the ultimate stage. The law of conservation of energy remains, but in the course of time, things are manifested and unmanifested. That is the difference. Then, what cause is there for lamentation either in the stage of manifestation or in unmanifestation? Somehow or other, even in the unmanifested stage, things are not lost. Both at the beginning and at the end, all elements remain unmanifested, and only in the middle are they manifested. And this does not make any real material difference. And if we accept the Vedic conclusion as stated in the Bhagavad Gita, that these material bodies are perishable in due course of time, antavanta ime dehaha, but that the soul is eternal, nitya shuktaha shariri naha. Then we must remember always that the body is like a dress. Therefore, why lament the changing of a dress? The material body has no factual existence in relation to the eternal soul. It is something like a dream. In a dream, we may think of flying in the sky or sitting on a chariot as a king. But when we wake up, we can see that we are neither in the sky nor seated on the chariot. The Vedic wisdom encourages self realization on the basis of the non existence of the material body. Therefore, in either case, whether one believes in the existence of the soul or one does not believe in the existence of the soul, there is no cause for lamentation for loss of the body.
Thank you, Mataji. So again, I think point and like time and time again, Krishna is basically, and Prabhupada is basically just trying to emphasize one of the reasons of Krishna or rather Arjuna not willing to fight for this battle. One of the things he had was his lamentation for killing his relatives and his grandfather, his friends, and so on. So here, time and time again, Arjuna is being explained either through Vedic philosophies or non-Vedic atheistic philosophies, how it is not very important for him to lament on that, because like in the atheist philosophies, you are unmanifest in the beginning. You don't have any existence before you are birth. You are born, you continue to live your life, and then you die. So what's there to lament there? So with that being said, we'll move on to the 29th verse. Yashashwini Mataji, you want to say that verse?
Ashcharyavat pashyati kashchidetvam.
Ashcharyavat pashyati kasyedkenam.
Ashcharyavat vadati tatheva chanyah.
Ashcharyavat vadati tathaiva chanyah.
आश्चर्यवच्चैनमन्यशृणोति
आश्चर्यवच्चैनमन्यः
आश्चर्यवच्चैनमन्यशृणोति
शृणोति
श्रुत्वाप्येनं वेद न चैव कश्चित्
श्रुत्वाप्येनं
वाप्येनं
वेद
वेद न
कश्चित्.
चैव कश्चित्.
Synonyms: Ascharyavat, as amazing; Pashyati, sees; Kaschit, someone; Enam, this soul; Ascharyavat, as amazing; Vadati, speaks of; Tatha, thus; Eva, certainly; Cha, also; Anyah, another; Ascharyavat, similarly amazing; Cha, also; Enam, this soul; Anyah, another; Shnoti, hears of; Shrutva, having heard; Api, even; Enam, this soul; Veda, knows; Na, never; Cha, and; Eva, certainly; Kaschit, someone. Translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada. Some look on soul as amazing, some describe him as amazing, and some hear of him as amazing, while others, even after hearing about him, cannot understand him at all. So here again, I think Krishna is trying to re-emphasize some of these points of the soul and describing the soul, of how people see of soul being amazing, and talk about it, and hear from him as amazing, while some that even after hearing that they cannot understand him. So a lot of times this knowledge about soul and self-realization, it is said that you have to listen through this from the disciplic succession. So, as we had previously talked about the disciplic succession of how Prabhupada, who was his guru, who was his guru's guru, and so on, as long as it leads towards Krishna, then those principles are being um, transmitted from one guru to the other disciple to the disciple, and so on. So we'll go through the purport here. Yashashwini Mataji, you want to say the purport? It's a little long. So we'll try to do this as the last verse.
Okay. Since Gita Upanishad is fully based on the principles of Upanishad, it is not surprising to find this parallel a passage in the Katha Upanishad. Shravanyapyapi bahubhiryo nalabhah Shrinvatopi bahoyam naviduha Ashcharyo vakta kushalo kushalosya labdha Ashcharyo jnata kushalarnoshriti the fact that the atomic soul is within the body of a gigantic animal, in the body of a gigantic bioentry, and also in microbial germs, millions and billions of which occupy only an inch of a space, is certainly amazing. Men with poor fundamental knowledge and men who are not austere cannot understand the wonders of individual atomic spark of spirit, even though it is explained by the greatest authority of knowledge, who imparted blessings even to Brahma by explained to Brahma, the first living being on the universe. Owing to a gross material conception of things, most men in the age cannot imagine how small particle can become both so great and so small. So men look at the soul proper as wonderful, either constitution or by description, illusion by the material energy. People are engrossed in subject matters for sense gratification that they have very little time to understand of self-understanding, even though it is a fact that without this self-understanding, all activities result in ultimate defeat in the struggle for existence. Perhaps they have no idea that one must think of soul and thus make a solution to the material miseries. Some people who are inclined to hear about the soul may be attending lectures in good association, but sometimes ignoring and owing to ignorance, they are misguided guided by acceptance of the super soul and the atomic soul as one without distinction of magnitude. It is difficult to find a man who is perfectly understands the position of the super soul, the atomic soul, their respective functions and relationships, and all other major and minor details. And it is still more difficult to find a man who has actually derived the full benefit from the knowledge of the soul and who is able to describe the position of the soul in different aspects. But if somehow or the other one is able to understand the subject matter of the soul, then one's life is successful. The easiest process for understanding the subject matter of self is, however, is to accept the statements of the Bhagavad Gita spoken by the greatest authority, Lord Krishna, without being deviated by other theories. But it also requires a great deal of penance and sacrifice, either in this life or in the previous ones, before it is able to accept Krishna as a super personality of Godhead. Krishna can, however, be known as such by the causeless mercy of the pure devotee and by no other way.
Thank you. That was fantastic, actually. So one point there that I'll take away from all this is basically you have to have a lot of bias credit, so to speak, to even come to a point where we are listening about Krishna, right? So there are a lot of, especially Yashashwini Mataji, like you may have a lot of friends, they are doing a lot of other things, but you have gotten those pious credits where you are spending your Sunday morning listening to Krishna and his pastimes in this forum here. So again, I think we want to kind of continue to remember who Krishna is. Krishna is the supreme absolute truth, and that's not just what I am saying here or what Prabhupada is saying. Those are the Vedic injunctions, and eventually in one of the verses, Krishna says that he is the source of the Vedas and he is the essence of the Vedas. So we'll learn about those concepts in the next few chapters. Mother, do you have anything? So we have one more minute. So we'll take any questions that anybody has, or we'll do our 2-3 minutes of chanting. जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि हरे कृष्ण कृष्ण राम हरे राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम
हरे राम हरे राम 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 हरे हरे
हरे
हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे राम राम हरे हरे
हरे कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम राम हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम हरे